Welcome back to Takeout. President Trump recently used a long-discarded slur for people with intellectual disabilities to describe Minnesota Democratic Governor Tim Walz. The governor responded during a recent interview with NBC.
He's normalized this type of hateful behavior and this type of language. And mainly, look, at first, I think it's just because he's not a good human being. But secondly, to distract from his incompetency. We know we just came through a Thanksgiving where prices are up. We know people are concerned about heating their homes as we're experiencing blizzards out here at the same time he's cutting those programs. So, look, we cannot allow this to be normalized.
CBS News Minnesota reporter and anchor Esme Murphy joins me now to discuss. Esme, it's great to have you with us. So, not to contextualize that slur, because there is no context for it, but the backdrop for this is a long-running investigation and set of prosecutions in Minnesota, some members of the Somali community defrauding the state during COVID and years after in various social services. That is sort of one part of this conversation. Take it from there.
Yes. Well, the Somali community has been the focus of these federal investigations into fraudulent applications for COVID aid and also post-COVID aid. The scope of this is enormous. We're talking about more than 70 people indicted. Well over 60 have pled guilty already, and this is just in the COVID scheme. The scheme itself was focused on food for children who were not going to school because of the pandemic and needed food and sustenance during the day. Since then, post-COVID, we've had the same type of allegations focused on autism programs and also housing programs. The scope alone of the Feeding Our Future COVID fraud is estimated at $240 million, and a lot of people say the real price is far north from there.
I want to read to you something that the president posted on his social media platform. Quote, Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope they will be left alone. The seriously did governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing. Are gangs roving the streets looking for prey in Minnesota?
No, absolutely not. And I know you've been here, Major, that's just not the case. I do think, though, that this fraud is of the scope and scale that it is very significant. And a lot of people, candidates running against Governor Walz for governor in the 2026 election, are using it and focusing on it. It is a big deal. It's a lot of money, and there's no end in sight. That's one of the biggest problems. And it all has happened on Governor Tim Walz's watch. However, there are not gangs of Somalis roving the streets, and people are not behind locked doors scared to go out. That's just not the case.
And very quickly, Esme, in some of the reporting I have read, it was suggested that state officials were reluctant to more seriously investigate this earlier because they were afraid of being accused of having a racial bias or a hostility to the Somali immigrants.
I think that's absolutely true. In fact, when the state did try and stop this and filed a suit in 2022, the suit was actually dismissed, and they were targeted for and accused of racism. So that is a fairly accurate statement. I think the people in charge of the state, including Governor Tim Walz, did not want to be portrayed that way. And when they finally did try and stop it with a lawsuit, the state was labeled a racist. So that's fair.
Esme Murphy, WCCO, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.